Welcome back. The president of the Vendors Association, Peter Ras Isaac, is appealing to the Castries Constituency Council to extend the moratorium on vendors' rent. Isaac says with no clear indication of when the cruise ship sector will reopen, many vendors are still unable to regain a steady stream of income. He believes that officials should consider at least 3 more months of COVID-related support.
Although tourism activity has resumed, this reopening has been far from the norm. Strict protocols govern what tourists can do and where they go. Visitors are confined to the grounds of their hotels, leaving only to engage in a select list of monitored activities. President of the Vendors Association, Peter Ras Isaac, says while the reopening of the tourism sector is encouraging and clearly indicates that authorities are moving forward to a sense of normalcy, the current tourism model does little to benefit vendors. He says vendors are still struggling to make a steady income. The Vendors Association president believes that the Castries Constituency Council should assess the current situation and consider the extension of the moratorium currently allowing vendors to operate rent-free.
Now, we had a 6-month cancellation of rent that was in the first instance. But what we are saying now is that there is no area now where we could see any kind of clear sign of any rebound of the tourism industry. And we don't know, we heard some news about one ship that may, or one agent, Norwegian, that may come here around December, and we're not sure. They themselves are not sure. So what we are saying is that we would like an extension of that cancellation of rent.
He stresses that the Vendors Association is not calling for a reckless reopening or for protocols to be eased to allow visitors to roam freely. He notes that trends in neighboring islands clearly indicate that St. Lucia must remain cautious to avoid an outbreak of COVID-19.
In the countries that we're expecting tourists to come from, like America and England and these places, we understand there is a surge in the whole question of the coronavirus. Even in the Caribbean now, we have a surge in the amount of cases in Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago. So we are saying that in St. Lucia, although we don't have any cases so far in terms of death, or we don't have any vast increase in cases or any surge in cases, we are hoping that we will take all the necessary precaution to make sure that we don't really find ourselves in the area as other countries.
Isaac is further calling on the government to extend the income support program. He says such support is still necessary as many sectors are yet to reopen.
We think that we deserve another 3 months of the income support, because nothing is really running, and to tell you the truth, the tourism industry has a lot of linkages, and a lot of things it's not just the people who are affected when the tourism industry is in a situation that is like the situation is in now. It's not just the workers of the hotels, but taxi drivers and service providers and so on and so forth. A number of persons are affected, people who provide certain kind of service, and all of them are attached to the tourism industry. All that is in a situation right now, and we are saying that we feel that another 3 months of the income support is something that we think we deserve.
The executive of the Vendors Association is set to meet with the Castries Constituency Council in the coming days to discuss a way forward. Jacques Wooding, Hot 7 News.
Now, the Minister for Tourism, Dominic Fede, has responded to concerns surrounding the continued operation of vendors within the current tourism environment. Minister Fede says although there is no set date for the reopening of the cruise ship sector, local authorities are working diligently to orchestrate a safe reopening. As for the extension to the income support program, the minister says that is unlikely.
Following calls by the Vendors Association for local authorities to clarify where discussions are at regarding a resumption of cruise ship tourism, Minister for Tourism Dominic Fede spoke with Hot 7 TV on current developments within the sector. Fede disclosed that several proposals are currently on the table. However, much like in the case of the resumption of airlift tourism, the return of cruise ships will not be business as usual. He says it is unlikely that visitors will be allowed to roam through markets anytime soon.
There have been some proposals on the table by very small cruise lines to return business sometime this winter. We're talking with stakeholders within that sector to see how we can make those proposals work. We believe that we have a very practical solution. But as it relates to cruise passengers coming to go back to the arcade to vend, I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think that if the cruise industry comes back in the first instance, you're going to have very small ships to begin with, and then those small ships are going to be focused on sea-based tours.
The minister says while he understands the financial challenges currently being faced by vendors, it may not be feasible to extend the income support program due to lack of financial resources.
As for the expansion of the program, I am not sure whether we do have enough funds to be able to continue doing the program. I think that so far it's been exhausted. We would have to look to see whether we can get more budgetary support, but there are no plans on the table right now to put that in.
Minister Fede hopes to meet with the Vendors Association in coming days to discuss possible means of addressing their grievances. Jacques Wooding, Hot 7 News.
The 2020 hurricane season is at its peak. Already, there have been 17 named storms thus far. 2020 has set the record for the earliest P-named storm. The last time that happened was in 2005 with Tropical Storm Philip on September 18. The director of the Med Services, Andre Joyer, has indicated that given the speed with which the storms are forming, there is a possibility that all named storms on the list will develop and the list will have to start over using the Greek alphabet.
It is a record-setting year for tropical activity in the Atlantic Basin, the peak of which is around the corner. While tropical storm and hurricane activity accelerate during the months of August, September and October, it is September 10th that is typically observed to be the height of tropical storm production, which already looks higher this season than previous years. The 17th named storm for the 2020 hurricane season formed on September 7. Rene is the 17th named storm of the current 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. It is also the earliest 17th named storm of any Atlantic season by 11 days. The previous record was Rita, which formed in September 2005. Given the speed with which the storms are forming and only 21 named storms, can we run out of tropical storm names? The director of the Met Services, Andre Joyer, explained what would happen if we run through the list of predicted storm names.
It has been predicted, and so far, the half of the season, we already have 17 named storms. So we only have 4 more to go on the list of names. Most likely they would have to use the Greek alphabet after those 21 names, because the projections by NOAA is that we would have between 19 and 25 named storms for this season. So it's very active.
Joy explained that while Paulette and Rene are not predicted to affect any land masses, a third system is being monitored.
Well, presently we have Tropical Storm Paulette and Rene. They're located in the Atlantic Ocean, and we're expecting that on the trajectory that they are right now, they would be passing to the north of us. So they would not be interfering with any land masses. They're expecting a tropical wave to come off the African coast sometime tomorrow, and that one has the potential to develop because the conditions in the Atlantic right now is ripe. So most systems that get into the Atlantic would form into at least a tropical storm.
He says the projections for this hurricane season have been spot on, and so he is urging members of the public to remain cautious and prepared in the eventuality a storm develops into a hurricane. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
The St. Lucia Fire Service is appealing to the public to refrain from placing prank calls to the various stations around the island. Lead Fire Officer Stacey Joseph explained that during the week, at least one prank call was placed to the fire service headquarters, causing them to waste time and resources.
Some think it is all fun and games to place prank calls to the St. Lucia Fire Service, but these prank calls have resulted in a waste of already scarce resources and have caused panic. The fire service is therefore issuing a warning to the general public that these practices should be stopped as it has serious implications on their operations. Spokesperson for the St. Lucia Fire Service, Stacey Joseph, explained that during the weekend of September 4th to 7th, at least one team was dispatched to a location where there was no emergency because of a prank call.
One of the fire calls was recorded as what we at the fire service call a false alarm with malicious intent, where it was reported that a building in the city was ablaze, and when officers responded, this was not the case. We would like to again warn the public on making prank calls to the department. Had another major fire occur at the time the officers were at this prank call, resources would have to be pulled from outstations to report to that incident, which leaves the fire ground for the outstations uncovered, and also it maximizes the response time to the real emergency.
Joseph made an impassioned plea to members of the public to desist. It must be noted that calling the fire service under false pretenses can be dangerous to others involved in a real emergency and financially drains a service that is there to save people's lives. Joseph says over the weekend, the fire service had 80 calls for assistance to respond to.
The fire service recorded for the weekend of September 4th to 7th 80 ambulance responses, inclusive of both the north and the south of the island. 4 of the recorded calls were motor vehicular incidents, 2 were calls relating to physical assault, and 1 shooting incident. There were 3 fire calls recorded.
Members of the public should only place a call to fire services emergency personnel when there is in fact an emergency. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Stay with us. Sports and weather are coming up after the break.